there. H tile, which is horizontal tile, which if you didn't change that particular setting, it means it would repeat this logo across your header all the way, depending on the size of that logo. So by adding a box, that's just a container for the logo. And then the last part was that location and the name of the file. So I added that in there. And then I adjusted the header height. So this was an interesting thing. I added my logo in, and let me go back to my report here. So I have another template here. Let me see. Oh, and before I forget, also notice this reset standard default style. This was great and gave me a lot of confidence that I could mess around with this, and if it doesn't work, I could always come back to the default. So that's a great thing. I can reset it to the standard, which I'll do right now real quick so you can see the font return. So now the font went back to the default Arial font in there, okay? So let me come back here, and I'll choose another template. Might be that one. All right, this one has my logo on it. And if I add a new report tab, you see how it added this logo up in my header area. I kind of drove Anna Laura crazy asking her for logos this past month. Can you give me one this size? Can you give me one with white background? She gave me this one, and initially when I added it into the CSS and I applied it to the report, I thought it didn't work because my header size was still the default size, and it was like that, and I thought it didn't work. So I started playing with the height on that. And so I looked on here. So let's make it close to default size. If I go to formatting and size, now it's not going to tell me. Oh, if I right click on here and say format header, and it tells me it's 1.85. Okay? So I went back to my CSS and changed it to 1.85, and still then applied the template and still couldn't see it. I'm like, what is going on here? And then I realized the numbers that I was looking at in my report were inches, and this was centimeters, so it wasn't working. So I changed it to 4 centimeters here, and then it showed up big enough. So this was the next change that I made. Based on the height of my logo there, I changed the header to 4 inches there. In most conditions, I probably wouldn't want a header that was that huge. Leaves very little, it takes away a lot of real estate, but that's the logo that I had to work with this time. And I didn't want to ask for another one. All right, another common thing is that we get asked about. The default size of a report, the default is the A4, and in the US we use the letter size, and they're close, but not quite the same, right? So this would show you, you could use this PowerPoint and come back here and look at it, what changes you need to make the size be a standard letter size rather than the A4 size. One of the cool things, they show the page, it's under report here. That's where you would look. And that number up there, the 29764, that's the number that we would change. And the text to the side is this text here, which is telling you that you can use centimeters or inches or millimeters or metric. So I'm assuming, since there's no indication after that that this is metric, although aren't centimeters and millimeters metric? So I don't know exactly what they mean by that. However, I do know that the standard letter size is 8.5 inches wide and 11 inches long. So I made these changes to the default to make it 8.5 inches and wide, 11 inches tall, and change the margins for a standard printing size as well, using inches, okay? And that would make it every report that you built. Now, keep in mind, this does not affect reports. You can apply this and on a report, and any new report going forward would have this. But it wouldn't affect a report that had a different style from the past. Okay? So do keep that in mind. All right, changing the table header look. This is where I changed, if we wanted to make it bold here, this says bold no, we could change that to bold yes. And that was the color that I added to mine. Within the document, you'll see that I captured even the row number from Notepad++ as a help as well, so that you know that might help you find where in that document to make those changes. This, again, is where I made the global change to the font, changed it from Arial to Impact. All right. Interestingly enough, if you want to change the charts, it's done in a completely different file, in an XML file called visualizationconfig.xml. So you can change that. You have to assign at least 2 colors, but you can assign up to 32 colors, and they use the RGB colors to define those. All right. This is the link that I included so that you can see, we'll show you a ton of different formatting changes that you can make to the, actually it just gives you the list of this is what the property is called and this is the description of it, okay? And what the values ranges you could use on that. All right, so then once you had a CSS sheet that you were really happy with and wanted to use on a corporate level, then you could give that to the administrator and ask them to place it in this particular file location in the business objects install path, and then it would be available to the entire company. Anybody using it from then on, it would have that formatting. And 2 things to keep in mind: always keep a backup of the original CSS file, just in case, if you make that change on the corporate for everybody. And then always also keep a backup of your modified CSS file, because if you apply any patches or new service packs, it could overwrite that back to the default. So you would want to be able to get that modified CSS and apply it again there. So keep a copy of that as well. All right, let me go back here and we can make some changes to that CSS. Oh, I did want to show you something else here. Here's my Notepad++. I opened up 2 different windows and synchronized the scrolling so I could compare. This is the original way it was on this side, and this is the changes that I made over here on the left. And I just applied CSS as the language used here so that the coloring would show up to be easier there. But it did allow me to highlight things and all. But just being able to, because when I first started working on it in just regular Notepad, I would make a change and then go back and apply it and see, no, that didn't do what I wanted it to. And so I'd go back and look at the CSS and have to hunt again, like where was that again? So this was really helpful to me to have the numbers here to say, I know it was around 300, and that's where the changes are. In the green there, you would see those are the comments that they added in there for some information for you. But there's just so many places you could make changes. All right, so here's down in this section called Chapter 6A. These are the table cells, and then it says settings for cells in a table, especially the body of cells. And then it says header cells properties will be defined below. So you wouldn't want to make the changes there. You need to go down to where it says table header. All right, so that's what we're going to look for in our file over here. Actually, let me use this one. I'm going to scroll down to that Chapter 6. Okay, so there's Chapter 6, the table cells, and here's the header cells. So I'll change this to bold yes. And this is already a new color here. All right. I'll save that change. And then we'll open up a new, just a table with the default settings on here. And I'll go into design mode and properties, document, change default style, choose file, and apply that. And close. Okay. So there we have the changes. If I look at this and like, I really don't like that font. So I can go back to the CSS here and change this back to Arial. And save those changes. What's nice is you can see how things were done on here. Just remember to follow the syntax that they have on there. I was making changes at one time and left off the semicolon on the end, and it didn't work. So you got to respect the syntax. All right. Okay, that looks better. So we still have our bold font in the headers, but some normal looking font in our table. So that is how to modify. It's been made a lot easier for us to be able to get to that CSS file, to make the changes. Hopefully these slides will give you some help in where to go to change the things that you want to change, common things that we change in there, and you can make your life easier by doing the formatting one time for all. Okay? That's all I had. Any questions? I think that's...